I got a text message from my dead son's phone number last Tuesday. I know because I've stared at that number every single day for 12 years, wondering why I still pay the bill for a phone buried 6 feet under Montana soil. The message was simple. Just 7 words that made my hands shake so hard I dropped my coffee mug on the kitchen floor. Dad, is this you? Please respond. My son died on October 7th, 2013. He was 24 years old. The highway patrol officer who came to my door that night had kind eyes, but kindness doesn't soften words like fatal accident and didn't suffer and need you to identify the body. I identified my boy. I looked at his face in that cold room with the fluorescent lights humming overhead. I touched his hand. It was cold. I buried him 3 days later in the cemetery where his mother rests, the same cemetery where I'll join them someday. That was 12 years ago. But last Tuesday, his phone came back to life. I stared at that message for maybe 20 minutes. My heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break out. The logical part of my brain kept saying it was a scam, someone who somehow got Thomas's old number, someone cruel enough to prey on a grieving father. But that small, desperate part of me, the part that never truly accepted my son, was gone. That part was screaming. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Who is this? The response came fast. Too fast for someone trying to run a scam. I don't know. I found this number in my phone. It says DAD. Are you my dad? I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter so hard my knuckles went white. What's your name? I typed. Jake Miller. But sometimes I have these dreams where someone calls me something else. Thomas? Tommy? I don't know. None of it makes sense. Thomas. My son's name was Thomas William Reeves. We called him Tommy until he turned 16 and told us it sounded like a kid's name. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Where are you? I sent the message before I could stop myself. Billings, Montana. I work at Morrison's Custom Furniture on 3rd Street. I'm sorry if this is weird. I've had this number saved for years and I don't know why. Today, something told me to try calling it, but I got scared and texted instead. Billings. That's only 70 miles from where I lived in Laurel. That's where the accident happened, on I-90 between Billings and Laurel. My mind was racing. I grabbed my phone with both hands because one wasn't steady enough. Jake, this might sound crazy, but can we meet today? I watched those 3 dots appear and disappear, appear and disappear. I guess so. Morrison's closes at 5. I could meet you at the Rimrock Diner on Grand Avenue at 5:30. I looked at my watch. It was 2 in the afternoon. 3.5 hours felt like an eternity. I'll be there. I couldn't just sit in my house for 3.5 hours. I'd lose my mind, so I did what I always did when the grief became too heavy. I drove to the cemetery. I parked near the old oak tree and walked to Thomas's grave. The headstone was simple, black granite with gold lettering. Thomas William Reeves, 1989 to 2013. Beloved son, forever in our hearts. I'd been here hundreds of times, maybe thousands. Sometimes I'd talk to him, tell him about my day, about how much I missed him, about how the house was too quiet, about how I couldn't throw away his old jacket that still hung in the hall closet. Today I just stood there, staring at that stone. Tommy, I whispered. I don't know what's happening. Someone's using your phone number. Says his name is Jake Miller. Says he works in Billings. I'm going to meet him. I need to see. The wind rustled through the oak leaves. A couple of crows cawed in the distance. Normal sounds. Normal day. Except nothing about this was normal. If it's not you, I continued, my voice cracking. If it's just some cruel coincidence, I don't know how I'll survive it. But if there's even a chance, I couldn't finish the sentence. I got back in my truck and drove to Billings. I arrived at the Rimrock Diner 45 minutes early and sat in my truck in the parking lot, watching every person who walked by. My phone buzzed. Running a few minutes late, be there by 5:45, sorry. I typed back a shaky no problem and went inside to get a booth. The waitress, an older woman with gray hair and a name tag that said Dolores, brought me coffee. I didn't drink, and asked if I was waiting for someone. Yeah, I said. Someone. At 5:52, the diner door opened, and a man walked in. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. He was taller than I remembered Thomas being, broader in the shoulders. He had a beard, something my son never wore. His hair was longer, pulled back in a short ponytail. He was wearing work clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, work boots covered in sawdust. But the eyes. Dear God, the eyes were exactly the same. That specific shade of blue-green that his mother had. The same slightly crooked nose from when he broke it playing high school football. The same way he stood, weight on his left leg, right hand in his pocket. He scanned the diner, and when his eyes landed on me, he hesitated. Then he walked over. Are you? He started, then stopped. You look familiar? I don't know why. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. At this man who looked like my son would look if he'd lived 12 more years. Older, more weathered. But my son. I'm Jake, he said, extending his hand. Jake Miller. I took his hand. His grip was firm, calloused from woodworking. Real, solid, alive. I'm Robert, I managed to say. Robert Reeves. Something flickered across his face when I said my last name. Reeves, he repeated slowly. Why does that sound? He shook his head and slid into the booth across from me. Dolores came by, and he ordered coffee. His hands were shaking slightly, I noticed. He was nervous too. So, he said after Dolores left. This is weird, right? I mean, I text a random number in my phone, and it turns out to be... What? I don't even know what this is. How long have you had that number saved? I asked, my voice hoarse. I don't know. Years. As long as I can remember having this phone, I have almost nothing saved in my contacts. Just this number that says DAD and my boss's number and a couple coworkers. I don't remember much from before, about 6 years ago. 6 years? Yeah. I woke up in a hospital in Great Falls 6 years ago. The doctors said I'd been in some kind of accident. Severe head trauma. No ID on me. No one came looking for me. They tried to figure out who I was, but nothing came up. Eventually, they just let me go. A social worker helped me get a new ID, new social security card. Picked the name Jake Miller because it sounded normal. I've been working odd jobs since then. Ended up at Morrison's about 3 years ago. My throat felt tight. What year did you wake up in that hospital? 2019. June. I remember because they told me I was approximately 30 years old, which would make me born in 89. They guessed based on bone density tests or something. 89. Thomas was born in 89. The phone, I said. Where did you get the phone? It was with me. In my pocket when I woke up. Screen was cracked, battery dead, but it still worked after I charged it. The only thing saved on it was that one number. Your number. I pulled out my own phone with trembling hands. I found a photo, one of my favorites. Thomas at his college graduation, cap and gown, huge smile, his whole life ahead of him. Jake, I said quietly, I need you to look at something. I turned the phone toward him. He stared at the photo. His face went pale. That's me, he whispered. How do you have a picture of me? I don't remember that. I don't remember graduating. I don't remember any of this. His name was Thomas, I said, and my voice broke. Thomas William Reeves. He was my son. He died 12 years ago in a car accident on I-90, between Billings and Laurel, October 7th, 2013. The police said he died instantly. I identified his body. I buried him. Jake was shaking his head. No, that's not. I'm alive. I'm sitting right here. I know. You're saying I'm your dead son? I'm saying you look exactly like him. You have his eyes, his nose, his mannerisms. You were born the same year. You woke up with his phone number. You were found after some kind of accident in Montana. The timeline. Jake, what if the accident you were in was that accident? What if you didn't die? Then who did you bury? That was the question, wasn't it? Jake ran his hands through his hair, pulled the ponytail holder out, ran his hands through it again. It was something Thomas used to do when he was stressed. This is insane, Jake said. You're telling me I've been living with the wrong name for 6 years? That somewhere I have a father who thought I was dead? You have a father who's been visiting your grave twice a week for 12 years, I said, and I couldn't stop the tears anymore. They just came hot and fast down my cheeks. A father who kept your room exactly how you left it, who still has your jacket hanging in the closet, who answers your phone number when telemarketers call just to hear someone say your name. Jake was crying too now, silent tears running down into his beard. I don't remember you, he said. I'm sorry. I don't remember any of it. But when I look at you, I feel something, like I should know you. Like somewhere deep down, I do know you. That's enough, I said. That's more than enough. We sat there in that diner booth for 3 hours. Dolores kept refilling our coffee and didn't ask questions. I told Jake everything. About his childhood, about how he loved building things with his hands even as a little kid, about how he wanted to be an architect, about his mother, Elizabeth, who died of cancer when he was 19, about how close we'd been after that. Just the two of us. I told him about the accident, how the police said he'd lost control on a curve during a rainstorm, how the car went off the road and rolled multiple times, how he was ejected through the windshield, how I'd gotten the call at 2 in the morning. Jake listened to all of it, sometimes closing his eyes like he was trying to remember, trying to pull something out of the darkness in his mind. The furniture, he said at one point. You said I liked building things? You built your mother a jewelry box when you were 12. Spent weeks on it. It had these intricate inlay patterns. I know how to do that, Jake said quietly. Inlay work. It's one of my specialties at Morrison's. I always knew how. I never questioned it. What else do you remember? Even small things. Dreams, Jake said. I have these recurring dreams. There's a house, white with blue shutters. A porch with a swing. Inside there's this big kitchen with yellow walls. And a woman, I can never see her face clearly. But she's humming something while she cooks, and I feel safe, happy. I couldn't breathe. Our house is white with blue shutters. Elizabeth painted the kitchen yellow because she said it was cheerful. She hummed while she cooked. Always hummed. Oh my God, Jake whispered. What else? What else do you dream about? Working on a car. An old truck. Red. The engine keeps stalling and I'm frustrated but also laughing. There's music playing. Classic rock. We restored a 1974 Ford F-100 together, I said. Red. Your 16th birthday present. Spent a whole summer on it. We listened to the Eagles and Creedence Clearwater Revival while we worked. Jake put his head in his hands. This can't be real. But it is, isn't it? It's real. I need to know for sure, I said. I need DNA test. Can we do that? Yes. God. Yes. I need to know too. We left the diner and I drove him to the hospital. They told us the test would take a few days. Jake gave me his address, an apartment above a hardware store on Montana Avenue. I gave him mine. Can I see the house? He asked, as we stood in the hospital parking lot. The white one with blue shutters? Of course. Anytime. Now, if you want. So we drove back to Laurel, Jake following me in his beat-up Honda Civic. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I pulled into my driveway, the same driveway Thomas had pulled into 1,000 times. Jake parked behind me and got out slowly, staring up at the house. I know this place, he said. I've seen it, in my dreams. I unlocked the front door and he followed me inside. I watched him look around, his eyes taking in the living room, the stairs, the hallway that led to the kitchen. He walked toward the kitchen, like he was pulled by a magnet. He stood in the doorway, looking at the yellow walls. She hummed here, he whispered. The woman in my dreams. She stood right there by the stove. Your mother, I said. Elizabeth. He turned to look at the small table by the window. I used to do homework there. I remember hating algebra, and she'd help me. She was better at it than I was. She was an accountant, I said. Jake walked through the rest of the house slowly. When we got to the second floor, he stopped in front of one door. This one, he said. Can I open it? It's yours, I said. It was always yours. He opened the door to his old bedroom. I'd kept it exactly the same, posters of bands on the walls, his desk with his old laptop, the bookshelf full of architecture books and fantasy novels, the bed made with the same blue comforter he'd had since high school. Jake walked in and sank onto the bed. He picked up the pillow and held it against his chest. "This is mine," he said. "I don't remember it, but I know it. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," I said. He stayed there for a long time, just sitting on that bed, looking around the room. I left him alone and went downstairs. I stood in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd cooked breakfast for him hundreds of times, and I cried harder than I'd cried in 12 years. Jake came down about an hour later. His eyes were red. "Can I come back tomorrow?" he asked. "You can come back every day," I said. "You can move back in if you want. This is your home." Over the next few days, we waited for the DNA results. Jake came to the house every evening after work. He'd walk through the rooms, touch things, look at photos. I showed him videos of him as a kid, as a teenager, birthday parties and Christmas mornings and his high school graduation. "I don't remember any of this," he'd say, frustrated. "But I feel it. I feel like I should be there. The doctors said memory might not come back," I reminded him. "But that doesn't matter. You're here now. That's what matters." On the fourth day, the hospital called. The DNA test results were ready. We drove there together. The genetic counselor, a young woman with kind eyes, invited us into her office. "Mr. Reeves," she said to me, "the results show a 99.9% probability that Jake Miller is your biological son. I'd known it in my heart from the moment I saw him. But hearing it confirmed, hearing those words, it was like someone had reached into my chest and restarted my heart after 12 years of it barely beating." I turned to Jake, to Thomas, to my son, and he was crying. So was I. "You're my dad," he said. "You're really my dad." "You're my son," I said. "You've always been my son." We held each other in that tiny hospital office and cried for everything we'd lost and everything we'd found. But there were still questions. So many questions. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Sarah Chen, who came highly recommended. If Thomas didn't die in that accident, then who did? And how did he end up in Great Falls, 3 hours away, 6 years after the accident? Sarah worked fast. She started with the accident reports from October 2013. What she found made my blood run cold. There had been 2 vehicles in the accident that night, Thomas's Toyota Camry and a motorcycle. The motorcycle driver had also been ejected, also killed, also a young man in his 20s. The bodies had been badly damaged in the accident. Identification had been made primarily through personal effects and what the police thought was identification found at the scene. But here's where it got messy. The medical examiner's office had been overwhelmed that week. There'd been a flu outbreak, staff shortages. Mistakes were made. Bodies were mislabeled in the morgue. Sarah found records that showed confusion about which body was which. Multiple staff members had logged concerns. But in the end, they'd gone with what the police had determined based on the vehicles and personal effects. The motorcycle driver's name was Marcus Webb. He'd been from Oregon, traveling through Montana. No close family. No one had come to claim his body. It had eventually been cremated by the state. Thomas's body had been claimed by me. Except it wasn't Thomas's body. It was Marcus Webb. I'd buried in that cemetery. Marcus Webb, who'd been in the ground for 12 years under my son's name. Sarah kept digging. She found medical records from Great Falls. A John Doe brought in by ambulance in October 2013, just 3 days after the accident. Severe head trauma, multiple broken bones, unconscious, no ID. He'd been in a coma for 5 weeks. When he woke up, he had no memory of who he was or how he'd gotten there. The hospital had tried to match him to missing persons reports. But Thomas wasn't reported missing because everyone thought he was dead and buried. The John Doe didn't match any active cases. Eventually, after months of recovery, he'd been released with help from social services. That John Doe was Thomas. The theory Sarah pieced together was this: Thomas had been thrown from his car, badly injured but alive. In the chaos of the accident, the rainstorm, the darkness, The first responders had assumed he was dead. They'd focused on the scene, on securing the area. Thomas had either crawled away or been thrown farther than anyone realized. Someone had found him later, called an ambulance from Great Falls. By then, the Laurel Hospital had already processed the accident scene, already made their determinations. The system had failed. Multiple systems had failed. And my son had lived for 12 years thinking he was someone else. We met with lawyers. They told us this was complicated. The medical examiner's office was facing lawsuits. The hospital in Great Falls had their own liability concerns. It would take years to sort out. I didn't care about any of that. I had my son back. That's all that mattered. Thomas. He still wanted to be called Jake most of the time. It's the name he'd known for 6 years. But sometimes he'd let me call him Tommy. Those were good moments. He moved back into his old room. Started seeing a therapist who specialized in traumatic brain injuries and memory loss. The doctor said he might never get his memories back. The damage was too severe, but he might get fragments, pieces, feelings. And he did. Slowly. A memory of learning to ride a bike. A memory of Christmas morning when he was 7. A memory of his mom reading him bedtime stories. Small things, precious things. He kept his job at Morrison's. He was good at it, happy there. But now he understood why he'd always been drawn to building things. It was in his blood. It's what we'd done together when he was growing up. We started a new tradition. Every Sunday, we'd have breakfast together in that yellow kitchen. I'd make pancakes, the way Elizabeth used to. Jake would drink coffee and tell me about his week. We'd look at old photos, and I'd tell him stories about the boy he used to be. I wish I could remember her, he said one Sunday morning, looking at a picture of Elizabeth. My mom, your wife, she loved you more than anything in this world, I told him. Every good thing about you came from her. Your kindness, your creativity, your strength. I wish I could have said goodbye to her. You did, I said. You were there when she died. You held her hand. You told her you loved her. It's okay that you don't remember. She knew. She knew how much you loved her. Jake nodded, touching the photo gently. Do you think she knows that I came back? Yes, I said without hesitation. She knows, and she's so happy, Tommy. Wherever she is, she's so happy you're home. We went to the cemetery together, stood in front of that gravestone with Thomas's name on it. We need to fix this, Jake said. Marcus Webb deserves his name. So we did. We had Marcus Webb's body exhumed and properly identified through DNA testing. We contacted what little family he had, cousins who barely remembered him. They agreed to take his remains. We held a small ceremony, gave him his name back, gave him the dignity he deserved. We changed Thomas's headstone too. It now reads, Thomas William Reeves, 1989, lost but found, home again. Because he isn't dead, he's alive. He's living above a hardware store in Billings and building furniture and drinking coffee in my kitchen on Sunday mornings. He's alive, and that's a miracle. I'll be grateful for every single day I have left on this earth. People ask me sometimes how I'm handling it. They want to know if it's strange, living with a son who doesn't remember being my son. They want to know if it hurts that he doesn't remember our life together. It doesn't hurt. Not the way they think. Yes, I grieve for the memories he lost. I grieve for the 18 years we had that exist now only in my mind. But I don't grieve for him. How can I grieve for someone who's sitting across from me, laughing at a bad joke, asking me to teach him how to make his mother's meatloaf recipe? Every day with him is a gift I never thought I'd receive. Every Sunday breakfast, every phone call, every time he walks through that door, it's more than I dreamed possible during those 12 years of visiting an empty grave. He's learning who Thomas was. But more importantly, he's discovering who Jake is. And Jake is a good man, kind, hard-working, thoughtful. He's everything Thomas was and more. He's a survivor. He's a fighter. And he's my son. Last month, we went fishing together. It was something Thomas and I used to do every summer. Jake didn't remember any of it, but he still knew how to cast a line. Muscle memory, the doctor called it. We sat on the bank of the Yellowstone River as the sun set, our lines in the water, not catching much of anything. And Jake turned to me and said, "Thanks, Dad." Dad, not Robert. Dad. For what? I asked. For not giving up. For keeping my phone number active all those years. For believing that text message might be real. For, he paused, swallowed hard. For finding me. For bringing me home. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You found me too, son. You found your way home all on your own. I just opened the door. We sat there until the stars came out, father and son, together again in a way I'd thought was impossible. The river flowed by, constant and unchanging. But everything else had changed. Everything that mattered. My son had been dead for 12 years. And then he wasn't. And now he's here. Alive, real, present. It's not the ending I expected. It's not even the ending I dared to hope for during those dark years. It's better. It's so much better, because he's home.